Chapter 2, Ron Down. Hours later, Harry came to the common room. "Hey, Ron, look! Hedwig learned a trick!" Hedwig flew off of Harry's shoulder and moved towards a bookshelf. He pecked a spider with his beak. "He can kill spiders!" "He thinks he's a hawk." Harry walked to the bookshelf and noticed the author of a book. "Ron, check it out! This guy's name is Tom Riddle. I bet it's a comedy!" Harry took the book and put it on a table near Ron. Harry opened the book and started flipping through it. "Oh, it is a comedy! It's blank. Happy April Fool's Day to you too, book." Harry looked at Ron, who was passed out in the chair. Harry tried to nudge him awake, but to no avail. Several empty bags were lying at his feet. Harry began to poke him. "Ron? Ron? Ron?" Then he began shaking him. "Ron? Ron? Ron? Well, this is not good." Hermione was walking down the stairs and heard Harry. She rushed down the rest of the stairs and towards Ron. "What happened?" Without letting Harry say a word, she noticed the empty bags at his feet. "You idiot. We need to get him to the hospital wing." They dragged him out of the common room and down several hallways. Somehow they managed to get him there in one piece. They brought him in the room and the matron came running towards him. She said nothing but quickly took his pulse. She brought him to the closest bed and started treating him. She went to get a large plastic box labeled Ron Weasley from the other side of the room. "You knew about his drug problem?" Hermione asked. "Yes, I was told long ago, and I've seen the kid walking down the halls with his face in a blasted plastic bag." She shook her head. "Well, I've been prepared for this sort of thing since he arrived. You'd better run along." Harry and Hermione paced around outside the hospital wing for a while before finally deciding to do something to take their minds off of Ron. "I'm going to look for Hagrid. Do you want to come?" Hermione asked. Harry nodded and they walked around looking for Hagrid. "Where would he be?" Harry shrugged. "We can ask someone." "Good idea." They found their way to an office. Several staff members were there. Hermione walked up to the front desk and asked the lady sitting behind it a question. "Where do you keep Hagrid?" We don't keep him anywhere. We usually let him go wherever he wants." "But where is he usually?" "Unfortunately, I don't hold that knowledge, sorry." Disappointed, Hermione walked back to Harry, who spotted someone through a door. "It's the Sorting Hat!" he exclaimed. "Yeah, so?" "I feel like he's angry with me for some reason. Don't you remember the last sorting ceremony? It wasn't exactly easy. I want to make amends." Harry went through the door, and Hermione followed. The lady at the desk didn't even notice. "Sorting Hat!" Harry called. The Sorting Hat turned to look at who had called him, and noticed Harry. "Not you again." "I'm sorry, citizen. I didn't mean to hinder your sorting duties last year." His face softened and he looked at Harry. "Thank you. I appreciate your apology. However, if you had sorted me to Slytherin, I would not be sorry. I would be quite mad still." His face went back to being furious. "I quit! Harry Potter, you have made me quit!" He walked out of the room and didn't turn back. Harry watched the door close behind him. "Well, I tried." Hermione shook her head and caught a glimpse of the clock. "Ah, look at the time. Curfew's in a few minutes." "What about Ron?" "We'll have to visit tomorrow. He probably won't be awake tonight anyway." They raced back to their dormitories and went to bed. Harry woke up early to go see Ron before classes. He met with Hermione in the common room and they walked to the hospital tower. "He'll be okay," Harry consoled as they walked. "He knows what he's doing. He shouldn't, but he does." They arrived at the hospital wing doors and entered a conversation between two of the patients. "Yeah, she stood up on the table and started screaming at Gryffindor Quidditch tryouts," Ron said. "Oh, wow, that's really horrible," a young boy with mousy brown hair commented. He looked young, most likely a small first year. "I hope she doesn't throw me into the lake next year, too," he sighed. "Don't worry, you get to ride carriages next year with everyone else instead of taking boats over the moat." Ron noticed Harry and Hermione. "Hey, guys! Welcome to the Isle of the Injured!" "Well, look at that! He's fine," Harry concluded. Ron beckoned them closer. "I'd give you the grand tour, but Pomfrey won't let me get up. She's got a sixth sense, I know that now. I can only give you the mediocre tour." He glanced at the door to Madame Pomfrey's office. "For now. Anyway, that's the bandage closet, cleaning supplies closet, linen closet, ooh, and my favorite, the medicine closet." Ron lowered his voice. "Just between you and me, she's got under-the-counter stuff in there, too." He raised his eyebrows and then continued. "This is Colin Creevey and that's Dory. She was a bit late on her way to the cafeteria, and she wasn't looking where she was going. I started to laugh when she was telling Pomfrey, but she was just all, ugh, you know, and she shook her head and went all humph and stuff. But I was just like, hey, Colin, I bet we could climb a mountain. He's like, what? And I was like, we could climb all the mountains and do it really, really fast, you know, like the elitist mountain climbers who climb stuff for a living, like mountains and really, really tall buildings with those suction cup things. Man, that's wild. They're like, I don't think Spider-Man's that great because I'm like him, or I am him, or I can do whatever Spider-Man can, except shoot webs, I guess, but who could really do that anyway? Like, he shoots the webs into the sky, but like, what do they grab onto? The clouds, I guess? That's the most obvious answer, but his brain was going too fast. So fast that Harry had to tune him out. They were imagining Ron would be weak, severely ill, but instead he seemed like he had just downed an 18-pack of energy drinks. Harry looked at the time. "We've got to get to class. See you later." Stay out of Madame Pomfrey's closet, Ron, Hermione added. Harry and Hermione started walking to their first class. Harry Potter! Someone called from behind them. They turned and saw the same short creature from the day before. What do you want? Harry asked, continuing to walk. Harry Potter can't go to Hogwarts, so please stop. Who even are you? Hermione asked while walking. Dobby. Dobby works for Lucius Malfoy. Please leave Hogwarts, Mr. Potter. You're just an elf. Why should I listen to you? Dobby had to run to keep up with Harry and Hermione. Dobby is not an... He sighed and continued. Things have changed, and there's danger awaiting you. We'll be fine. We've already survived a year of Hogwarts, Hermione said. Dobby stopped running and gave up his chase. Though Harry and Hermione were glad, his words made them nervous. Hermione sat in class thinking about why a purple elf thing named Dobby would come to Hogwarts telling Harry to leave. Harry's not special. However, she can't say danger hasn't arrived. Ron's in the hospital wing even now. There's also Harry's insane aunt and uncle, and the death of Dudley they have yet to investigate. But last year, Harry's pet Rock disappeared. There was danger then, too. They had to sneak around a den of snakes in the basement of the basement with snake people. Dobby may say things are different, but how could he know? All they have to do is be a little more careful, and everything will be all right. She also began to feel as though she was being watched and her thoughts read. She wondered if Harry ever felt this way. While Hermione thought responsible thoughts, Harry was staring at Ron's desk. Maybe, just maybe, one of his secret drug stashes was hidden there somewhere. Would he be able to find it and destroy it when the teacher's back was turned? Professor Sprout walked to the chalkboard to draw a diagram of how to properly use a watering can. With this opportunity, Hermione leaned over to Harry. I'd rather listen to Ron ramble than Sprout leisurely going over the millions of commonly missed questions on last week's quiz. For the billionth time. When Sprout spun around again to see if anyone could help her label the diagram, Hermione rose her hand. Professor Sprout's curious eyes landed on Hermione. Yes, Miss Granger. Would you like to draw an arrow pointing to the handle? She held out some chalk. May I use the bathroom? Intrigue left her eyes as she began to nod in approval. Go right ahead. Does anyone know which part the handle is? Harry's hand rose as Hermione stood up. I must use the bathroom as well, citizen. Yes, she sighed before pointing the chalk at the diagram. Anyone? She bit her lip. All right, we'll just review that subject. Harry caught up with Hermione, and as he suspected, she wasn't on her way to the bathroom. So you're going to the hospital wing? Hermione slowly turned her head to look at him. No, I was planning to see if I couldn't climb on the roof and... Yeah, let's go see Ron. On the way, they noticed the door leading to the basement was open. Inside was a Weasley. Not Ron or George or Fred or Percy, but Jenny Weasley was climbing down the stairs. Jenny? Hermione called to the ginger girl 3 floors below. Hi, she replied as she continued her journey. What are you doing? Harry asked. Shouldn't you be in class? Hermione called. Shouldn't you? She replied with a smirk they couldn't see but were positive of its existence. We're older, Hermione justified. Jenny was clearly not impressed with Hermione's plea. By a whole year, too. I'm on my way to wrestle a snake. Cool, Harry commented. Whose side are you on? Hermione snapped. What? I think it's cool. You'd think it's cool, too, if you weren't pretending to be a perfect little Mary Sue for Mrs. Weasley. She looked back at the stairs. Ginny, why don't you come with us to visit Ron? Ginny finally stopped moving. She looked longingly towards the bottom of the spiral staircase and then back up towards Harry and Hermione. Fine. They arrived at the hospital wing and saw Ron in his bed sitting crisscross on top of the sheets. He gave them a wild-eyed expression as they entered the room. She won't let me leave, he complained. Madame Pomfrey? Hermione blinked. I want out! Jenny glanced around the room. She's not in here. You can just get up and leave. On his knees, Ron moved closer to the corner of the bed. Ho, he laughed. You don't even know. He looked around the ceiling and pointed. She's sneaky, very sneaky. She's around. He struck his visitors with his wild eyes, making them jump. She's everywhere, he shouted after snapping his head to the other side of the room. He was breathing heavily, tottering around his intangible cage. The previous patients had left, and a new one had arrived. An older student with a bruised leg was taking a break from filling out some paperwork to give Ron the stink eye. Hermione rubbed the bridge of her nose as the door to Madame Pomfrey's office opened, and Ron crossed his arms and leaned back. So you've returned! Hello, Ron, she said in passing as she went to collect the other student's paperwork. Let me out of here, he demanded. You're not well enough, she replied sharply. I feel fine, he replied. Without responding, she walked back to her office, snapping the medicine closet's padlock shut on her way. The room was restored to just a moment before when the door to the matron's office was shut and Pomfrey inside. Attempting to lift the mood from, madness, Harry began an announcement in a superhero pose. "Hedwig has a bunch of tricks to show you." Hermione curiously turned to him. "You can train an owl to do tricks." "We've taught them to deliver mail. Tricks aren't really far off." A minute later, Hedwig flew in the room carrying a letter in his beak. Harry took the letter and read it. Ah, he just learned another one. Hermione looked suspiciously at Harry. Doesn't someone have to teach him these tricks? Most birds don't come with convenient lists on what tricks they can do. "Don't underestimate my owl. He's a special bird who can do many things." Hedwig landed on Ginny's shoulder to her delight. Hermione grabbed the letter from him and began reading it. Harry tried to get it back, but Hermione kept it away as she read it. "Dear Harry, you found a very intelligent owl. Thank you for letting me train it. Hagrid," she read. "Hagrid? You've been speaking with Hagrid? Hagrid's been training Hedwig?" Harry refused to open his mouth as he tried to grasp the letter. "Where are you harboring him?" Hermione shouted. "Hagrid lives in that cute little wooden cabin." Madame Pomfrey had reappeared. "Thank you. He may be visiting you soon," Hermione smiled. As she started off in the direction of the main doors, they opened and Madame Pomfrey rushed over to help someone who had just come in with an injured leg. Hermione continued on her way while the matron muttered to herself, "That McGonagall is going to get someone killed." "Fine, Pomfrey! You win!" Ron bellowed. "I'll be more careful. Is that what you want?" Madame Pomfrey smiled. "I do believe that would prevent future visits here." Defeated, Ron laid down on his back and stared at the arched ceiling. "When can I leave this cursed place?" "Soon," she answered. "Mud, where are you going?" Harry asked as he and Ginny entered the hallway. "Ginny, you should get to class," Hermione directed from down the hall. "I have something I need to take care of." Disgruntled, Ginny turned away. Oddly enough, at a right-angled fork in the road, she looked back, showing a mischievous grin before turning left and trotting down a different corridor. Harry knew this task of Hermione's couldn't be good. "Mud, what do you need to take care of?" "I need to kill your friend." Harry was right. Hagrid didn't get Ron to start doing drugs. "I don't care. He's telling everyone they're wizards, and I need to stop it. I have a lot of anger and frustration that I want to get rid of." Harry tried to stop her, but soon enough she found the wooden cabin. "Mud, I'm warning you. As protector of Hogwarts, I will not let you commit this crime. And when your magic spell fails, you'll blame Hagrid too, for lying to you." Hermione knocked on the door impatiently. "Hagrid!" Hagrid opened the old wooden door and gave a friendly smile. "Mud, Harry, come on in. Would you like some tea?" Hermione got even angrier with Hagrid, even though she didn't think that was possible. "My name isn't Mud." "Whoa, why so mad?" "You know exactly why I'm mad." Harry stood behind Hermione, ready to pull her back if he needed to. "Because I give children dreams about becoming wizards?" "Hagrid, you know what you're doing. Don't mess with me." Hagrid started to laugh. "Don't tell me you'll attack." "I will." "I'm 7 feet tall, and you're a 12-year-old girl. I'm sorry, but I'm not worried about me safety." "You're a big jerk, and if I was a wizard, I'd curse you." "Ah, Hermione, I understand you don't like me telling kids that they're wizards, but that's no reason to hate a person, and I've tried helping you out to make up for it." "You've helped me?" "Who else did you think arranged for you to be in the same dormitory as Ginny Weasley? And I barely talked to her, so she should be an easy fix." Unable to find a good response, Hermione said nothing and there was silence in the wooden cabin. She lifted her head and looked around. Where'd Harry go? It only took a second for Hagrid to glance around the small cabin and come to the conclusion that he must have left. They walked outside to hear someone screaming for help. "That's Harry!" Hermione shouted as they looked for him. In the distance, there appeared to be a fight. They got closer and found a very short creature beating Harry with a broomstick that was much taller than the creature. Harry was collapsed on the ground, shielding his face. "Get out of Hogwarts!" the elf screamed. "Bad, Dobby, bad!" Hagrid yelled, breaking up the fight by picking up the short creature and the broomstick. "Dobby, this is unacceptable behavior. You'd better get to helping Adam and Kevin with our movie." But, Dobby protested as he was held 3 feet in the air. Hagrid put him on the ground. "Go!" he roared. Hermione helped Harry sit up, and Hagrid checked for broken bones. "He really doesn't want me to be here," Harry said, wincing in pain. "I saw him in the window and went to see what he wanted. I really shouldn't have. You're going to want to rest that arm in the hospital wing." They brought Harry to Madame Pomfrey, who was disappointed to see him. "Oh no, you were just here earlier." She brought him to a bed and started treating his arm. "Was this injury caused by Professor McGonagall?" "No," Harry answered. "Good. I just have to ask because there's a special form to fill out for McGonagall-related injuries. It's a whole thing." Hagrid and Hermione parted ways after they left the hospital tower. Hermione went back to class and was scolded by a professor. She spent her next classes alone. In her last class, she started hearing screaming. Many of the students, including Hermione, looked up from their work. They saw several students running past the classroom. "Snake!" one of them screamed. Professor Swipstikes sprang to his feet and started directing everyone to remain seated. Hypocrite. He stuffed a cloak under the door so nothing could slither in. "Don't worry, you're safe from any snakes." He added a slight eye roll and chuckle. Then the professor continued his lesson. No one could pay attention since students were still screaming and they didn't know what was going on. Eventually, the lesson was over and the class was dismissed. For the first time, no one moved. They all stayed in their seats and no one went to the door. They all sat frozen, afraid of what could be outside. They could tell Swipstikes had gotten frustrated with the students remaining in his class, but he couldn't tell them to leave. Sending a class into a corridor filled with screaming students probably should be avoided, even if they are most likely overreacting. Minutes passed and they heard footsteps coming towards the classroom. The door flew open, moving the stuffed cloak with it, and Professor Snape and his bat rushed in. "Our snakes have accidentally been released into the non-basement levels of the castle." Even with this news, his monotone didn't slip. The class gasped, and Hermione wondered how it was possible. She'd been to Slytherin, and the snakes were kept in secure glass habitats in the basement under the basement behind a secret entrance, not to mention all of the long hallways. The professor of the class looked worried, perhaps realizing this was actually serious. "You should all stay here until my students have rounded them up." "Has anyone been hurt?" the professor asked. "A few people were bitten, including a first-year student named Ginny, I believe. My condolences." "Ginny?" Hermione gasped as Snape hurried out the door. "No!" Hermione chased him into the hallway. "Miss Granger, come back here!" Swipstikes shouted as she ran. 50 points from Gryffindor!" "We're not going to win anyway!" Hermione called as she ran. She ran to the hospital tower and into the hospital wing. Ron and Harry were there along with Ginny and a bandage around her arm. Madame Pomfrey was treating another snake bite across the room. Hermione rushed to Ginny, trying to find words. Before she could, Ginny began speaking solemnly. "Snake wrangling is a difficult line of work. I understand that now. You should only ever try it if you have had adequate training. Ron, Harry, and now Ginny. This is way worse than last year. Dobby must know something." "I'll check on all of you later," Hermione said as she rushed out of the room. She ran through the halls of Hogwarts and went outside to find Hagrid's cabin. She knocked on the door. The creaky door opened and Hagrid stood in front of her. "Hermione, I personally know that you have classes. Where's Dobby?" "With Kevin and Adam." "And where are they?" she asked, getting impatient. "In the theater, I reckon." "There's a theater at Hogwarts? I haven't heard of any plays." "That's 'cause there aren't any. Budget cuts. And if we did have plays, you wouldn't hear of 'em either. Their marketing was the first thing around here to be cut. What do you want with Dobby?" "I want to know what he knows about Harry and this danger that awaits him. I'm starting to think he's onto something." "I'll come with you." "Why?" Hermione asked as they walked towards the field that Harry had been attacked in. "Because you're picking up that broom." Hermione stopped moving and knew she couldn't hide the fact that she was indeed picking up the broom from earlier. "What harm would a peaceful person like me do?" "Would you like me to remind you of our last meeting?" Hermione pouted. "I'm still taking the broom." They made their way to the theater and opened the grandiose doors. On the other side, the doors were dusty and the paint was chipping. The carpet of the rows in the house had many stains and tears. The fabric of the seats and the carpet were a matching faded red. Spiders lowered themselves to the seats from the chandeliers to continue construction on their webbed city. Most of the light came from the windows since most of the light bulbs had burned out. There weren't a lot of windows either, just a couple at the stage. The curtains had been pulled back so they could provide light. The curtains were a faded red and the wood flooring was worn. The stage seemed to be dusted quite frequently, or at least used often. Dobby stood in the middle of the stage as 2 boys held a camera in front of him. With every step, the floor creaked. "Dobby," Hermione called. The elf happily hopped off the stage and walked towards her and Hagrid. "Yes?" "What do you know about danger that awaits Harry?" Hermione asked. "Not much. Dobby just knows there is new danger present for Harry Potter." "But it's not just Harry," Hagrid started. "Everyone around him is getting hurt too, and it hasn't been Harry's fault." "That's right. Harry only got hurt because of you." Hermione pointed at Dobby with the broom. "Dobby apologizes for hurting him, but it was the only option. If Harry Potter stays here, he may get hurt." Hermione stared at him for a full minute. Off that brilliant thought process, he can't just leave. He has to attend Hogwarts. "Dobby, I'll protect him. You don't have to worry. Tell me exactly what you know, and I'll take over," Hagrid offered. "Dobby can't. Dobby said too much already. Please, if anything happens to Harry Potter, Dobby will blame Dobby's self." "Don't worry, I'm very good at protecting people. And I think you've had enough time to help out with this movie. You can leave now." The two boys whined and went back to looking at the footage they had recorded on their camera. They walked towards the door and Hermione remembered the snakes. "Stop! A bunch of snakes were released earlier. We can't go out there." "Don't tell me you're afraid of snakes." "Hasn't Harry taught you Sneck?" Hagrid laughed. "Sneck isn't a language." "Come on, I won't let the snakes get you." Hagrid was going to bring her to Gryffindor Tower, but Hermione insisted they'd go to the hospital wing to see everyone. Hagrid agreed since all of her friends were there. All of them.